Chris.
I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jimmy.
Welcome back to Worldview Finder, episode 58.
Technically, not 58, but that's a story for another time.
So last week I realized we had skipped episode 56. I had made notes on episode 56 that we never recorded, and then last week we just jumped to 57.
Yeah.
So
It's our black hole episode.
So there's a missing episode out there that you'll have to find.
Yeah.
So now we'll just refer to episode 56 as, oh yeah, that was on episode 56.
That's the lost episode.
Yeah.
We'll never know about it.
And maybe someday we'll make it. But today, we're on episode 58. We got a lot of fun things planned today.
What are we talking about?
We're going to talk about two Gen Z terms that are taking the world by storm.
I'm Gen Z, so I should know a lot about this.
We've got at least one representative here today to talk
And
about
a couple
that.
boomers.
It might cause some fights. There might be fights. How not to respond when someone won't share with you. So that's our Florida foible.
Sharing is caring.
It's
Good
gonna be
lesson
great.
for our kids.
We'll start off, but first, is living a boring life bad? Because Jimmy, you're pretty boring.
I am very boring.
Jimmy has that boring life.
I'll embrace it. I go to bed at 8:30. I'm not afraid.
It's pretty boring.
Yeah. So that's like nobody wants to be boring. Like nobody wants to be like, oh, I have a boring life. Like you want excitement. You want things happening. You want to be doing stuff.
Not necessarily.
You don't?
Yeah. I like routine.
You do like routine, but even routine, you can have excitement in it. You go work out. You have like a regular.
That's not excitement. That's normal.
I don't work out.
You're the face of fitness in Evansville, Chris.
Everybody's surprised by that. I am the face of it. I need to get back to working out, but
That's true.
I do exercise.
I think in general, people, they like to do things that are exciting, though, or have some excitement in their life.
Yeah, because even in the routine, you still have things that you're like planning or looking forward to.
I always look forward to drinking my iced coffee in the morning, like an absurd amount. It's the small things in life that bring me a lot of joy. And Malia makes fun of me. She's like, "Why are you so excited about the iced coffee you drink in the morning when you drink it every single day?" I'm like, I've been thinking about it.
People thrive in routine.
Yeah, that's me.
So do you say you have a boring life?
Well, I have a non-boring life by default of just having twins.
Yeah.
So I'm automatically set apart into a non-boring life.
You have 4 kids. Yeah, having 4 kids, both of us.
Having 4 kids makes you boring to other people, though, of like, I don't do anything besides take care of these kids.
That's true.
So it's like, I don't get to travel like I want to. I don't get to, these things, but not to say that I hate my boring life. I love my kids.
Yeah, you're not. Well, yeah, it depends on the perspective. It's boring in the sense that you're not going out and doing all this crazy stuff. But you're at home.
I feel like it's the Walter Mitty complex.
Oh, Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Yeah, which we can talk about. Let's talk about that another time.
Okay. But the reason I bring this up is because I watched The Union, the new movie on Netflix starring Halle Berry and Mark Wahlberg. And it was decent. I liked it. I would say it would tip more on this is probably a 7.
Out of 10?
7.5 out of 10. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was a decent movie. The premise is Mark Wahlberg has a boring life. He's a welder at a thing. He's grown up, is it Jersey? No, Pittsburgh. Where's he from? Whatever, Pittsburgh. I don't know. So I think Pittsburgh. And so he's there. He does his job, and then he goes to the bar with his friends afterward, same friends he's had since high school, and hangs out there, and they drink, play pool, and then he goes home and does it the next day. He still lives with his mom, not married, and then his old high school sweetheart shows up and recruits him into the Union. So the Union is a secret... It's kind of like the FBI.
It's like the Illuminati.
Or the CIA, but they don't advertise. And they're made up of people that are blue-collar workers, just normal people. Because they're not the top of their class. They're not the people that went to Harvard. They're not I've been wanting this my whole life. It's just normal people that work in hotels and work on factories and they have kind of this, I guess it's a spy organization, but they take down bad guys and stuff. And so... Like
the Kingsmen, but not... gentlemen, they're
blue
collar.
Right, they're blue collar. And so, but it's kind of this ragtag organization. Like they're not great at what they do, that's what makes it kind of fun. Because they're like the first mission, and this is like the opening of the movie, a lot of them don't make it. And so that's why...
Spoiler alert.
Well, and that's why they have to recruit Mark Wahlberg. And so he has to do 6 months of training in 2 weeks to kind of get up to speed on this mission and be able to complete it. And so what comes up often, though, is that Halle Berry is like, I went and did something with my life. She's like, I went to college, but she dropped out of there and joined the Union and became this spy and this person that works in this secret organization to help the world. And she's like, so basically, and she said, all right, because they fight throughout the thing. And she's like, well, why don't you just go back? And she's like, I never need you again. I'll just come to the same bar you're at every night and find you at that stool again where I found you this last time. Because it's like you do the same thing over and over. But they make Mark Wahlberg to be this nice guy, like, because his friend is like, oh yeah, he's going to pay for his beer or whatever, and he's like, no, I got it because it's like, I got a cash advance, and he's like, oh, that's cool, and he walks off, and then his other friend's like, oh, you got a cash advance? That's great. He's like, no, I didn't. He's like, he lost his job, and so we got to help him out. Everybody's chipping in, give some money. So he's like, so he takes care of his friends, and his friends are like, you must be doing something really important because you're missing. One of them's getting married. He's like, you're missing my bachelor party that he was the best man supposed to be planning it. And so you just see him like have a good group of friends and a solid life, but it's not exciting. It's just kind of the same thing over and over.
Is it not exciting just to the people that are in the Union? Is that like how they're trying to recruit him, is make him like non-content, ill-content with his life?
Discontent, I think it is.
So Halle Berry's kind of pointing out like you have, she's like, you just do the same thing. You just live this routine life and it's not exciting and all this stuff. He's like, yeah, but you are living this exciting life, but you don't like it either. Like you don't have like a good solid group of friends. You don't have stability. You don't have things in your life.
Fulfilling relationships, it sounds like.
Yeah, and so there's this interesting, because they're kind of sort of reconnecting after being gone apart for so many years and just kind of what went wrong in their relationship and all that stuff. Yep. But the most of it is just them doing the spy stuff. But these conversations will come up intermittently throughout. And so I was just thinking about that because I remember I had a friend that went to the Global Leadership Summit, which you guys put on a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. But he was talking about, and this was years ago, but he said, it's this leadership conference. And he said, what about the person in the room that their job or their calling in life is to be like a good husband or a good wife and to live a life where they just hang out with their kids and they're like raising their kids well and doing their job well. And they're not called to this, oh, you got to change the world and start an organization and do all this stuff. Cause he's like, I always leave there feeling like I'm not doing enough in my own life and I have to start some non-for-profit or I have to start this thing. Yeah. And if I don't, then I'm not a good person.
Yep.
And so that's what like this movie is kind of like, it's okay to be a blue collar worker, but it's also okay to step out of that and to be like to live a little. I don't know. So the worldview it felt like it's okay to have a solid, stable life and be able to do that, but it's also okay to seek adventure. Like it's not. You have to choose
either
one.
Or. Yeah, it's a both and.
And so I mean, there's some bad words. It's PG-13, and there's an ongoing weird relationship with Mark Wahlberg has.
Oh, good.
that they like make fun of quite a bit. But
so with this, I think it's one thing to have kind of a quote unquote boring life and have it where you're content, you have friends, you do that kind of thing. But I think you can live a boring life where basically you get up, you go to work, you come home, you eat dinner, you watch a couple hours of TV, you go to sleep, and you do that for 50 years.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fall into that just by default. And I don't think that's the healthiest thing to do with your life.
Right. And I think as Christians, we are known by our fruit. And so I think you would look at somebody's life and say, what's the fruit of their life? Whether they are CEO or a spy or, a blue collar worker or a mom, like what's the fruit of their life? And is that that's what's important.
Yeah. So here's a Bible verse.
Oh, Bible verse.
About brotherly love. You don't need to write me to write to you. This is, 1 Thessalonians 4. Paul's writing this. About brotherly love. You don't need me to write to you because you yourselves are taught by God to love one another. In fact, you are doing this toward all the brothers and sisters in the entire region of Macedonia. But we encourage you, brothers and sisters, to do this even more, to seek to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, so that you may behave properly in the presence of outsiders and not be dependent on anyone.
Interesting.
So live that quiet life. No, but it's not this flashy, showy, like following Jesus. It is, yes, we're supposed to tell others about him and stuff like that, but it's not to be this crazy, like we're yelling at people in the streets and like, yeah, they're worse and all this stuff. But it's like show love to people in the way that you live your daily life. Like your normal everyday life should be following Jesus and all those things. And I think just sitting, going home, vegging out, watching TV, and just going to bed, like we're missing out on the community that we're supposed to have with one another and things like that. And I think that's where kind of the excitement comes in when you're doing things in community with one another. That's where like we're finding our peace and finding our wholeness because we're doing life together with fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. And so I think when you take that out of the equation, that's when it becomes this boring life. I'm like, I do the same thing every day. I go to the same bar and drink and play pool with my friends, but there's not a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we equate how we live our life with purpose. And if we feel like, I'm not working towards something, then we don't have purpose. But it's like Christ gives us that purpose. And
I was like, Christ gives us purpose in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And one of the takeaways I had from the Global Leadership Summit this year was it's not necessarily what you invest in, but who you invest in. And I think it goes into that as well of like, community. If you're investing in each other and again like bearing good fruit in your lives, then that's maybe to somebody it's not an exciting life, but I think the question shouldn't be am I living an exciting life rather than am I living a fulfilling life?
Because we've been in a series in a vision series, and we've been talking a lot about basically starting with the end in mind and thinking, living your life in light of the fact that you're going to die. And I was listening to a book, and it was talking about this Harvard study that followed people from pretty young and then just followed them for decades and showed kind of how they were going through life and everything like that. And they would constantly do different surveys and stuff like this. And the only kind of correlation to people that ended up living longer, but really ended up enjoying their life wasn't it what their job was. It wasn't what they had accomplished or how exciting it was. Mm-hmm. It was if they had really deep connections with the people that they have in their life. So those real relationships, those are the people that ended up living longer and had much more fulfilled life. Even if they were quote unquote less accomplished, they enjoyed life a whole lot more. And that was kind of the one thing that all of the quote unquote happy people had in common is they had a group of people that they loved and that loved them. So I think it's important to, whether you live a boring life or an exciting life, keeping that in mind where you're chasing something like you were saying that will actually fulfill you rather than just something to show that you're accomplished.
Yeah, and I think the boring and exciting thing is like us perceiving how other people perceive us.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, they think I'm boring because I just hang out with my kids all the time and I'm not doing fun stuff. And
right. And that one, you're projecting something onto someone that's probably you're feeling self-conscious about more than them. So you're actually judging them in the process. But if you ever do get that pushback or somebody says that to you, it's like boring by whose standards, or like why is that the question you're asking? Like, why is boring and exciting the question to be asking about my life? What about like fulfilled or unfulfilled, or happy or unhappy?
Yeah, or purposeful. So ask yourself those questions. Like, is my life fulfilling? And if it's not, what's missing from that? And because we follow Jesus, if you don't follow Jesus, I think that's the place to start looking. You're like, okay, do people that follow Jesus have a more fulfilled life than those that don't? And why is that? So,
I will say something that's never boring is what's happening in Florida.
Oh, it's time for Florida Foibles.
They are not living boring lives down there.
That's true. Right. So this is between two sisters. So Adrian's my sister, so I don't know if this has ever happened to us, but
maybe.
Let's think of something if we can.
Yeah, of what. Okay, so a Florida woman was taken to jail after she allegedly threw a plate of ravioli at her sister last week. So
she was taken to jail.
She was straight to jail.
Straight to jail.
You throw ravioli, straight to jail.
So she was arrested on a battery charge because she came to her sister's house and one of them had food and she wouldn't share food. And so I don't know. It sounds like if she had a plate of ravioli, maybe that was the food she wouldn't share.
There's got to be some deeper thing going on here, but yeah. Continue.
Well, according to the article, so she got there, was arrested. So, and then the sister came to the residence, and they share.
They did not share.
According to an arrest affidavit, Davis' sister came to the residence. They share with food.
Oh, okay.
So she came home and had food. Okay. When the sister did not allow Davis to have any of her food, deputy said she got mad and admitted to throwing ravioli at her. But here's the kicker: when deputies arrived, the victim still had some sauce on her. Official said. Sauce. But then, so she got mad. So I guess she picked up her plate of food and like, well, if I can't have it, none of us can.
Or did it happen like this? So the one sister is sitting at home, like they're fighting about like, what do we eat for dinner tonight? And then finally they decide like, let's just eat whatever. And so the one sister is like, I guess there's some ravioli in the back of the pantry, so I'm going to eat that. And the other sister leaves, comes back, has Chick-fil-A, and then she's like, I'm over here eating ravioli and you got Chick-fil-A, you didn't even bring me anything. Give me some Chick-fil-A. And she's like, no, this is my Chick-fil-A. And then she takes the plate of ravioli and throws it at her, hits her in the head, and then she's
left with sauce on her face.
Yeah. I think the sister that didn't share should go to jail.
No, so Davis' sister came to the residence they share with food. So the one...
Yeah.
She just showed up with food.
The sister came with food. Chick-fil-A. And then Davis didn't have any food, I think. And that's why...
I think you're reading that.
The food she came home with was ravioli.
Yeah, so I think the girl brought ravioli home. And
she brought a plate of ravioli home?
Look, I wasn't there.
No, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't matter.
That doesn't check out.
What matters is food got thrown. And somebody went straight to jail.
And what's funny is that there's several other articles about people getting food thrown at them in Florida and getting arrested. And so, all right. So, if somebody hasn't shared something with you? What have you done? Have you ever responded in a way?
Was there anything that I wanted from you? I feel like you never wanted. It's like you're not going to play with my dolls or whatever. But I always wanted stuff.
Well, when you weren't around.
That's weird.
Play with your dolls. I'm just kidding. Okay, so what? So
I feel like there's stuff I wanted to play with
that you wanted me to share. I watch this with my kids. They don't want anything until the other person plays with it.
Oh, sure.
And you're like,
that's human nature.
They're not sharing. You're
that's
like,
universal.
It's that scarcity mindset. I don't know. Did you ever, like, growing up, was there anything that people wouldn't share with you?
Not necessarily sharing. I did have a time where we had a home computer at home, like a desktop computer, and my sister was on the computer and I wanted on the computer, or maybe her time was up and she wasn't getting off the computer. So I turned the computer off and she didn't like that.
You didn't go through the shutdown process? No,
I just hit the thing and ran. And I believe this was in the middle of the winter, and she chased me outside. And at this point, I was only wearing just like basketball shorts, so I didn't have any shirt, any shoes, any socks or anything.
No service.
There's like snow. Exactly. There's snow on the ground, and she chased me outside and locks me out.
Ooh.
So for some reason, being a weird kid, I like walk around the block. I don't know why, but I'm like, I feel like someone should have called CPS because there's this kid just only in basketball shorts walking around in the snow. Yeah. So, and then she didn't share. It's so sad.
So did you think of anything? I can't really think of anything.
I can't think of anything.
You guys were just sharing.
We were far enough apart, I think, in age.
Oh, okay.
Like, was there any Game Boy games? Or, like, I'm trying to think on road trips if it was like, I want to play Bugs Bunny or something. I don't think so. Obviously nothing to stuck with us.
Play Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny Crazy Castle. Great Game Boy game, by the way.
That was the number one selling game in 1965.
1965.
That was a top
1992.
Before technology.
That's what I would say too. Now, I will say that the whole throwing things at people, not very demure.
Not very mindful.
You're really good at these transitions today.
He's on it. Okay, so there's a new Gen Z term.
Well, the one is really taking the internet by storm.
Well, actually, one's an old term, but it's it's grabbing the attention of the peoples.
The youth.
Yeah.
And the peoples.
And some of it I feel like it's a little bit sarcastic. Yeah, it is. It's a very old term, and it's back, baby.
So what is this term, Chris?
Well, you just said it.
It's demure.
Demure. So a TikToker. Yeah, TikToker. Jules LeBron. Jules LeBron. Not to be confused with LeBron James. So Jules LeBron made this video where she's talking about, like, hey, I'm going to a job interview. How I dress for my job is the same as when I show up for the job. If I get the job, I'm going to dress the same. And she said, some of you should dress up like Marge Simpson for the job interview, and then dress like Selma and Patty for the
I didn't get that reference.
You didn't get that, which is funny.
I didn't get that reference either.
Because it's a Simpsons reference.
Who's Selma and Patty, though?
Patty and Selma are Marge's twin sisters that are not demure. They're very
not demure.
They chain smoke, and they are kind of ratty and kind of gross.
That was a good reference then.
Yeah,
it was a great reference, but it's funny because like Gen Z people won't get that reference.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was like, I got it.
Yeah. So all these celebrities, all these influencers now are taking like the same sound, or they just say it themselves, where they're like, I'm doing this thing, very demure. Or if you're not being mindful, if you're not being cutesy, then it's not demure, not mindful.
So she says, 3 terms: demure, mindful, and cutesy. And so being mindful, and so that one was interesting because there's one that she's on a plane and she's like, I'm being mindful. Like as soon as the plane lands, I don't get up. I wait till they are actually.
So it's a bit of like an etiquette thing.
Yes. It's just,
which is already like a viral, or people have a lot of, I guess, feeds or accounts of like, this is proper women etiquette.
Okay. So demure.
So this is like a funny take on it.
The definition of demure is reserved, modest, and shy, typically used of a woman. And so typically you would use that term like if you're a female, but it doesn't have to be
demure.
But yeah, so reserved, modest, and shy. But the mindful thing was interesting to me because the other videos that people are making, this lady is like walking in the street of New York. She's like, I'm being demure. I'm being she's like, I'm dressed very demure. I'm being mindful. She's like, if I have to text, I stand over to the side.
And then someone drove by and honked their horn at her, and she's like, honking your horn, not very demure.
It was great. It was good. And so she's like, when I drive, I don't honk my horn. So it was interesting. To me, it's interesting because it's what the modest is hottest. Like, I mean, in etiquette stuff.
Yeah, it's like bringing out the etiquette.
Yes. And so, but it's because Kim Kardashian and like these other celebrities are like taking it, and there's like a red carpet thing where everybody came up and was like, oh, look, I'm dressed very demure.
Very mindful.
Suit, black tie. Yeah.
Very cutesy.
Very cutesy. And so
it is interesting because, I mean, it's similar to what you were talking about in the first story. It's this idea of not being over the top, not being flashy, not kind of putting yourself out there. It's just being kind of to yourself, very demure, very mindful.
Yeah. But it's putting others first, which is a biblical thing.
Mindful.
Yeah, consider others like better than yourselves, and so you're like looking for ways to be mindful and to help others out and to be kind of this. Oh, I'm a good person. I'm demure. I'm mindful. I'm looking at my environment around me, and instead of because this person did talk about how they played the victim a lot, and she's like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to look at it from my own perspective and and be mindful of what other people are going through, and not just be like, well, they're attacking me. And she's like, no, I'm going to be a part of the solution of the problem. And so,
well, yeah, because another, I don't know if this is necessarily Gen Z, but I remember a trend that was happening was having being the main character, having main character energy. Have you seen?
Oh yeah.
So it's very much like the world is revolving around me. I'm the main character of this story, and it seems like demure is kind of taking a back seat a little bit.
Mm-hmm. But this seems like the opposite of the other term that is very popular these days is brat.
Brat girl summer.
Which I did not know what brat was.
How do you just kind of hold both of these in your hand?
So first, what's brat?
Yeah. So brat made popular by Charlie XCXVI. I don't know
this.
An artist.
You're supposed to be our Gen Z representative here.
Yeah, come on,
There's
Jimmy.
so much going on. I can't keep track of every Gen Z.
It's a musical artist that put out an album called Brat. But she adds that Brat, this is what she defines it as, very honest, very blunt, a little bit volatile. And so,
and they use the image of like kind of the hot mess pop star that maybe goes out, parties too much, has fun, says some bad things, but
also is vulnerable and
exactly
like is okay with being a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and then it kind of became popular because that artist said that Kamala was brat. And then people were like, why are you calling her a brat? Like thinking like the old term of brat, like you're annoying and rude and all this stuff. And they're like, she's like, no, it's from my new album. And so Kamala in her campaigns kind of embraced that. And people were like, oh, Kamala's a brat and all this stuff. But now this Demure thing has come along and it's kind of like they're like,
which should you be?
Fighting each other. Yeah. And so it's going to be a rumble.
Being a hot mess, not demure, not mindful, not cutesy.
Yeah. And so it's kind of...
Do you feel like the brat side of things, I feel like it definitely has tied in with Taylor Swift. I feel like do you think Taylor Swift is brat?
I would say so.
I feel like that's kind of her vibe, right?
Nowadays her old vibe was not that. But
right.
But it's kind of like I'm gonna do my thing, I'm gonna live my life, I'm gonna
party, but I'm also gonna admit that I'm kind of broken and a mess and vulnerable and all that.
So is that very blunt and honest? But is that?
It's not mindful.
It's not.
Sometimes being blunt and honest but with that attitude of like I'm also a hot mess and this is just who I am. Embrace it. That comes with it. Is like you just have to. I don't know. It just seems like not a good vibe.
But is Demure being fake though? If I'm reserved, if I'm like,
you can be fake Demure.
Because I really want to go, and that's some of the content out there about the Demure stuff. I feel like it's mocking it kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's more, that trend is more mocking it.
Demure?
You think
Don't you think? I think that they're mocking the original post.
Oh, some of it, but the girl walking in New York wasn't, and there was another guy. I forget what I think he went in recycling or something, but just like it's like I put my chair back, or like, and so. But then there was some like the celebrity ones. I felt like were almost like, oh, I'm Demure. Like,
just jumping on a trend.
You're Kim Kardashian, like you're not Demure.
She's maybe a little over the top compared to your average Joe.
I'm very mindful. Are you cutesy? Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, so because that one, the other guy, I forget who he was. He's some
actor fellow,
TV star. Yeah, but he's like, I'm very Demure, and then like cuts to a clip of his movie. He's like, ah! He's like yelling real loud.
He's being sarcastic.
So
he'd be more brat.
So I feel like the Demure is one or the other. Is like people using it as this is like I could see people in like a trade or like working at a restaurant be like jumping on the trend to be like, this is Demure and this is mindful. Yeah. This is how you treat people. And that's like taking it in the good way. But then there's like the other half that's like, the opposite.
Because the one with the guy, I don't remember who it was. It's just a guy on TikTok or whatever. But he's like, I'm very Demure. I tip. I tip my waiter for my coffee and like sort of putting the tip in and all this stuff. But the way he was talking, it seemed sarcastic. But the things he was doing was nice. He's like, I'm being mindful to this person. And so it's just kind of, a return to modesty. Sorry, that's a book. Did you ever read that? I had to read that in college.
I love that one. I've never read it.
Wendy Shallot.
It's a New York Times bestseller.
Her name. But it was, this was written years ago. But yeah, she's talking about a return to modesty and why the culture is so like highly sexualized and highly like, we gotta wear lower cut stuff. And like even, speaking of Brat, the Bratz brand of toys were these like.
It's Bratz with a Z.
It is. But they're like.
Dolls, Gen Z.
Wear very short skirts and wear weird things. And they're just like very odd and kind of, like.
Just going against the grain
of Barbie being demure and mindful.
Yeah, it's Bratz versus Barbie.
Yeah, well, it's like are we going to be constrained and like being told what to do? And that I could see like as a woman that being, like for a long time you want to do the opposite. You want to rebel, so you want to be. But it is rebelling being a hot mess because that's
right.
That's like you don't have to. hold to those constraints, but also be like selfish.
Right.
You know, there are ways
you can rebel in a kind way.
There's ways to express your individuality without being selfish or not demure, not mindful.
Yeah, because it is hard. Because there's that fine balance, and I mean, I don't know if this will get me in trouble, but like thinking like the civil rights movement, because there were like two sides of that where, okay, we're going to do peaceful sit-ins. We're going to like, this is wrong. What you're doing to us is wrong, but we're not going to fight you for it. We're going to actually just have a sit-in and be like, this is ridiculous that we can't use the same bathrooms. We can't eat at the same restaurants. So we're going to sit in this restaurant and say, hey, just because our skin color is different doesn't mean we can't eat here and be a part of this. But then you had another part. There was rioting and all that stuff. And so you have those like two different things. And so I think, the way to rebel sometimes against social norms, especially for women, like that a lot of times.
Also for like a shock factor too. Like that is, again, that's another trend that's going around, is like clutching our pearls. So it's like you're causing someone to clutch their pearls.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's like this old fashioned shock of something that new trends are doing, or what young people are doing these days. And it's so I feel like it's all really tied together, of like, there are these camps of people who want to bring back, I don't know if they would say bring back modesty, but just like kindness or something. But then there's another group that's like further pushing the envelope.
And you kind of always have that, right?
Yeah. There's nothing new under the sun there.
Yeah. And so, but it's interesting that this one person made a TikTok that like just took off, and now it's like this big trend. And I know that happens, but a lot of times it's like several people making the same thing, and then it becomes a trend. But this just one person made a Demure thing, and everybody's like, we need that.
Yeah.
But I think, and this is where like it comes back to our worldview, is they're looking at the world around them and saying something's off here. Brad Summer, like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be this victim. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm a hot mess, but I'm not doing anything about it. Like, like I'm embracing the hot mess. Like, yeah, I'm terrible. Like this person's like, no, there's something wrong here. And so I want to be demure. I want to be mindful. I want to look at the world around me.
Cutesy. You forgot that one.
Yeah.
And cutesy. I want to make the world a better place. And when I'm being brat or whatever, I'm not doing that. And it's benefiting me, and I feel better because I told that person what I think, and they took it, and they cried and whatever. Like, but I'm just honest. But like, no, we're supposed to.
At the end of the day, though,
speak the truth in love.
If you, like we always say, live the worldview out. At the end of the day, like who's going to feel better in this scenario?
Yeah.
I mean, if without Jesus, either way, you're going to feel hollow or like something's missing. But if you're considering others above yourself, those sorts of things, like that's a fulfilling, because it is based in some truths. It's a more fulfilling lifestyle than like, I'm going to be a hot mess. And then probably at the end of the day, you're going to feel really alone and terrible by yourself.
Yeah. But I think, but you want other people to embrace that with you, so that you feel like, oh, we're doing this together. Look at us. We're coming for the man, taking it to the man, and that kind of stuff. But then like, no, if I live this quiet, demure, reserved,
cutesy,
modest,
you forgot that one.
life, mindful. Yeah. Of thinking of others first. I think then you start to, because you are playing out what turns out to be a Christian worldview. And so you start to view people as God sees them, and is like, okay, this person may be going through something. How can I be mindful of what they're going through and actually help them and benefit them? And so I think it opens you up more to following Jesus, because you end up living like Jesus taught us to live, and you're like, oh, and then you just look at, hopefully, people following Jesus around you, like, oh, they're already doing this, and they're already living in that way. And you said recently, or you'd read a book, I think you talked about it or listened to a podcast, where a guy like went all around the world trying to find community, and then they ended up at a Christian community and like ended up staying there because of the way that they were treated and the way that people just
in like a super small town in North Carolina. Yeah,
and it was probably just a quiet, reserved, modest,
demure.
life.
In a cutesy town.
In a cutesy town in North Carolina. Yeah. So think about like the way that you live each day, like that quiet life, the way you live your life in those moments. And that kind of goes back to that verse, because it's like, yeah, your everyday lead a quiet life, mind your own business, and work with your hands as we're commanded you to do. Like just whatever you're doing in life, do it with that in mind. And I think when we start to live that way, it is going to make the world a better place. And I think that's why this is catching on, is because people are like, oh, if I'm actually mindful of other people, then I actually live a life that is fulfilling and hopeful and brings peace to those around me, instead of causing more fights and being volatile and all this stuff.
So are there people that embrace that but still go on to do great things? Like that you would say that there are like some really humble, like kind of quiet life people.
I mean, Billy Graham was one of those. I mean, he was an evangelist. I don't know. Do you know who Billy Graham is?
I've heard of him.
Huge crusades.
In the graham cracker box.
Billy Graham cracker. Yeah, so he was an evangelist and led lots of people, including, I think, didn't our dad come to Christ at a Billy Graham crusade? I think.
What?
I think so.
What? Let us know in the comments.
I don't know anything.
But there's those, yeah. So, but he was a guy like behind the scenes that would like have people come and pray for him, and have people come and like, he's like, hey, teach me from the Bible. And you're like, you're Billy Graham. I can't teach you from the Bible. But he just kind of lived like this quiet life. Denzel Washington is another one.
Denzel.
Like he's never flashy about it, but he gives tons of money to charities, helps people in need a lot. It just lives kind of this, like, yeah, he's a great movie star, but like behind the scenes, you're like, oh, he's actually a very demure, very mindful.
Well, because I think that at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what kind of your job or your level of accomplishment. I think this is kind of a mindset or a lifestyle that you can embody, whether you're a movie star or whether you're a person who works at the post office.
Yes.
Yeah, but you were saying, does somebody that is mindful and kind to others, do they go on to do great things?
They can.
Yeah, I was just saying, if I feel like the false perception of that would be like, if you live this humble or like considering others above yourself, then you never do anything for yourself, or you never try to
unless
like get
you make
ahead.
a TikTok about it, then you get 23 million views.
Yeah,
So
you like never try to
demure?
get ahead or like be successful, because that's the opposite. But that's not what we're trying to say.
Correct.
We're saying be like Denzel.
Denzel, very demure,
You have
very
two
mindful.
options: Denzel or Billy Graham.
Nice.
Well, you said people that went on to accomplish things.
I know.
So
That's what I'm looking
we
for.
don't
I'm
have
looking
enough
for
time
just some examples.
So
Let us know in the comments.
let us know.
We've
in the
never
comments.
heard of them because they're
All right.
demure.
So yeah, are you brat or are you demure?
Let us know.
Not manure. Manure. So, all right. I think that's about time for
It
us.
is.
Thanks for watching and listening. Check us out on our socials. Follow us. I don't know.
It's the longest outro I've ever
All right.
heard.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris.
I'm Adrian.
And I'm Jimmy.
We'll see you next time.